Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this event. We hope that you have connected successfully and that you can hear us well. So if there are any problems, just let us know. My name is Eloisa, and along with Carla, Camilla, and Ian, I'm representing the ISPOR KI student chapter. And today we start our PhD series with a presentation by Filip Gedin. And Filip has recently finished his PhD at KI in costs of low back pain and effectiveness of the Swedish primary care. And he will be talking about his research project, his work experience, and also give some insights about the process of doing a PhD at KI. So the talk will last approximately 20 minutes, and then we will have time for questions in the end. So if you have any questions during the presentation, just write them in the chat and we'll make sure that they will be answered in the end. So Filip, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And yes, please feel free to start.
Great, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to speak to all former or about to become health economists. I think, as I said to you guys before in the startup meeting, that I think you made a wise choice going to pursue the health economist track. It's a really nice profession and with a lot of opportunities in the professional life. So I'm going to speak, as you said, for approximately 20 minutes. And you're free to ask me anything, both during the presentation and I don't know if you just can raise your hand or something like that, so I know if you have any questions. So I think I share a lot of the backgrounds with you guys who are attending the program here at KI. I was born and raised in the small town of Sigtuna. I don't know if you've been there. It's more known for the big airport that it's placed in the municipality, but Sigtuna as a small town is also quite a nice place, I think. It's actually one of the oldest towns in Sweden, and it hasn't grown that much since it's founded, so there are not that many people there. My background is in public health, so I have no economic background as I think usually a third or half the track usually have, but I think that the public health provide me with a deeper understanding of the epidemiology and the understanding of preventive medicine when it comes to some of the health economic things that we need to understand. Then I went to the master degree program that I don't know if every one of you have attended that, but I have a master from KI as well. And then I defended my PhD thesis in this December last year, which is always nice to remember or revisit talking to you guys. And I've been attending a few Swedish podcasts as well, and it's always hard to talk about something that I've been working on for 4 years, because it's such a let's say roller coaster of an experience. PhD students usually attend the program for about 4 to 5 years, and when I talk to Camilla and the rest of the group about giving a speech on or talk about my experience of being a PhD student, I think I hope I can summarize some value things that you can take with you. I can say that it's practically the master thesis, but spread out over 4 years. You have your initial stages where you are super engaged and you want to do something amazing in the thesis work. You are setting up a plan for solving one of the biggest mysteries that you have seen during your master thesis work and stuff like that. But after a while, you understand that you're not going to solve all problems in the world, and you start to get quite scared of the process, and then you attend your half-time seminar and you understand that things are going to work out, and you start writing your CAP and so on. So it's a mixed experience, absolutely. Some of the benefits of being a PhD student is the freedom of doing basically what you want most of the time. You're not going to be documenting hours or having certain time that you have to be in the office. It's quite free to decide who you want to work and in what manner you're going to set up your deadlines. But it's also the biggest weakness, I think, of a PhD student in a PhD position, is that you basically go from being a student where you have everything set up. You have your examinations, you have your assignments, and then you enter a position where you just basically have to manage everything, not by yourself. You have your supervisor, but you have to understand the process by yourself, and you have to learn pretty much to handle a whole project by yourself. So it's it can be a challenge and a struggle, but you also, at least my experience is that you have a lot of friends on the way. I think Fanny Gode is going to present in a couple of weeks, and yeah, we have shared the time as PhD students during that process. So it's a mixed experience. It's nice to be done as well. If I can give some advice to people that are interested in pursuing a PhD position or thinking of doing it after your master program, I shouldn't say that how you can become a PhD. I can say that there is different kind of. I can say that actually. That's quite. There's a official way of pursuing a PhD position, which is just applying at the KI's website. I think they have a page just specifically where you can find all the potential positions that you can apply for. I didn't went that route. I needed to find a supervisor, and I needed to find some money, and I needed to find a project that suited me. So all that I have the opportunity to seek out myself. And I don't know if you know, but I had Niklas Citreus, your program director, as the main supervisor of my project. And I didn't know him before, so I could reach out to him and ask him if he was interested in doing a doctoral studies with me or help me through that period. And he was happy to accept it. So the rest is history. But things that you have to think about when you're before you apply or before you start your PhD is choose a good supervisor that you are going to that you are able to work with for a few years. A short PhD is 4 years, and it usually gets prolonged due to some setbacks and stuff like that in your project. So think about having that supervisor that you have in front of you for more than 4 years. So think about having a person that you really can talk to, and to have someone that you really trust. That's a big thing of having a good PhD experience. The next thing is that it's easy, especially my experience is that you run into your PhD project. You want to do something amazing. You might have the same experience with the master thesis. I was the same in the planning stages of my master thesis, and it actually worked out quite well. I did collect over 1,200 questionnaires during my master project, but it was not the same in the PhD position. So I went in with with a not feasible plan, leading to a lot of stress and unnecessary work. That, I mean, you are a stressed person just attending the program, because you have a lot of things that you have to produce and do in the way of a PhD student, and a lot of things to learn. And I think you should be quite skeptical of time plans, and plan something that is feasible even in 3 years, so that you can have time to learn on the way. And finally, if you pursue a PhD position, do think about the worst case scenarios. In my study too, I was trying to collect 600 participants to an RCT, which is a challenge. And we didn't have, or at least I didn't have, a plan B planned beforehand. So fortunately it worked out, but it's really good if you think about what can go wrong and what can we do if something isn't working as you planned out to be. And of course the supervisors have your back and you can always ask them, but it's good for you as a PhD student to also think about those things, so that you don't have to have that stress. So my rationale for pursuing low back pain, and I should say that my thesis was about low back pain and the cost effectiveness view of it. The RCT was a big part of that thesis. And the reason why I wanted to look at those things was that low back pain is one of the highest reason for disability in the world. Together with depression, it causes a lot of issues. It's also impact people differently based on socioeconomic differences. So people in lower socioeconomic status usually are affected worse due to back pain. And we have a lot of costs associated with back pain as well. As I said, back pain and disability in Sweden is one of the leading causes of sick leave, and that means that we have high social costs due to it. Then it's also hard to choose which treatment to pursue if you're a patient or a clinician. We don't have any national guidelines for which treatment that is suitable for treating individuals with back pain. So you have to decide based on 200 different types of treatments, which is really difficult if you don't have a evidence-based decision. So the overall aim of my PhD project and the thesis was to explore the cost of back pain, as well as cost effectiveness of various treatments of low back pain. And I focused mainly on primary care in Sweden. It's different from different countries, but in Sweden, most people with low back pain or back pain are treated in primary care, in the primary care sector. And most of them visit a physiotherapist or a chiropractor, which are reimbursed through the municipalities and so on. So the structure of those studies that I've pursued to answer the aim of my thesis was study 1 that went through 2015 up to 2017, when it was published. Study 2 started the second year of my PhD. Same with study 3. And as I said, I had some problems with study 2, which was the RCT trial, and needed to have a backup plan. And together with my half-time committee, we decided that a register study would be suitable. And that is something that is really good to have in a health economic doctoral studies, I think, if you can say that, because there's a lot of data, and if you want to work in Sweden, I think if you have the opportunity to work with big data, should take that opportunity. So I did the last study on register data, looking at costs of back pain. So study one is actually a continuation of my master thesis. So I had a position there where I worked at a school called Scandinavian College of Chiropractic, which is a private funded school where students go and learn about to become a chiropractor. I worked there as a teacher in basic research courses, which was a good opportunity for me to gain some money during my master program. So I was interested in looking at how individuals with back pain, how their symptoms change over 4 weeks if they visit a chiropractor. So we did a prospective observational study where we looked at 246 individuals or patients with non-specific back pain. Non-specific means that we don't know the cause of the pains. We don't know if they have they usually don't have any known pathology or, for example, the herniated discs, for example. We had quite high dropout rate of, and we had only 56% that completed the whole process from baseline to the last follow-up at 4 weeks. We collected data through paper questionnaires, and the data that we looked into was Oswestry Disability Index, which were functional disability. We had the EQ5D, which you know from the courses that you have, and then a numeric rating scale for pain, which is a unidimensional scale just to look at pain intensity. And we did some tests as well, data analysis, of course, together with Mesvin. And even though we had a quite large dropout and we didn't have a comparison group, we actually had in the beginning. I should say that most of us think that we should always have a comparison group, and we thought that as well. So we had actually 2 clinics that we wanted to work with doctors. Unfortunately, they didn't collect any data, so we just had information from one group. So we needed to work with that, and as so often in research, we have to find new ways to go about it. We found some quite interesting results. The changes were quite big if you look at both statistically and clinically. Of course, chronic back pain didn't change as much, but that is to be expected. And it's actually quite interesting that they actually changed at all, because chronic back pain usually don't get any better, or they have little results from treatment. So what we can learn from that study was that, although we can't say anything about effectiveness, of course, because we don't have any comparison group, we can say that it was interesting to see PROMs change over time, mostly for the better, and we wanted to investigate that further. So we did what I wanted to do from the beginning, to look at the RCT trial, where we can have 4 groups and 4 arms that we looked into. And this meant that we had an even bigger challenge. And as I said before, I was quite optimistic because we had collected quite a lot of participants during a very short period of time, as you know, as PhDs, master students. And I was setting up a really strong case or study design on how to deal with your problem, how to deal with back pain. And so we had the goal of reaching 600 participants, but we only received 88 participants, which, as you can see, can imagine being a quite stressful situation for a PhD student, and it was not so fun to see that you weren't able to collect those individuals in the end. And the results, we had some results. They are not significant due to the fact that we didn't receive the reason why we needed 600 participants is that when we did the power calculation we need at least 100 participants in each group. So we really didn't find enough individuals that we can bolster up our power in these calculations. But we found that if we look at those two, the most effective treatment compared to the cheapest one or the least costly, the ICE for combination group was quite, even though the changes weren't that big as well, we could actually say that it's cost effective as long as we are willing to pay more than 500,000 Swedish crowns. I also did a study on the evidence of different kind of treatments for low back pain. As I said, there's over 200 types of treatments. And so we basically wanted to look at what is the evidence out there for those two different kinds of treatments that people get. So we performed a systematic map, which is basically a mapping study, or you can meta study, where we look at systematic reviews and what they find. So it's quite rare. It's a new type of study design, but it views everything from if you view the evidence pyramid, you actually view the pyramid from above meta-analysis, usually from the top. And so we looked into 22 systematic reviews that we were assessed for having low to moderate risk of bias, which is quite good. We used the AMSTAR checklist, which is a tool to check the risk of bias in systematic reviews. And what we found was that if you look at the systematic reviews, there's some treatments that had a positive effect with okay evidence. I don't know if you know, but evidence is usually graded into 4 categories: high, moderate, low, or very low. So we had positive effects with moderate evidence for NSAIDs, opioids, spinal manipulation, which is a type of chiropractic technique you treat patients with. You had evidence that multidisciplinary, a range of treatments combined into one, that it also provide effective treatments, and then also lastly therapeutic ultrasound. We had also some evidence that suggests that mobilization, traction, motor control exercise, where you train your muscles in the stomach, is not that effective, as well as behavioral treatment didn't seem to be effective if you look at the knowledge or the evidence out there. And we found a lot of knowledge gaps as well. We could see that exercise, for example, that most patients receive actually don't have that updated evidence. So there is a lot of research to be done in these areas. It doesn't mean that exercise is bad for you. It's just that we need to study it more thoroughly. And lastly, the study that I did after the halftime to be able to finish, even though I just had 88 participants in study 2, was an explorative prospective cohort design study, where we looked at individuals that had their first ICD. Let's see, did you receive them? I can say that name of, I'm sorry if I can go back a little bit. So the name of this new study design is systematic mapping. It goes with different names, so mapping designs is usually what we call them. And they're used by the SBU, the agency, the HDA agency, where they usually do it to understand the knowledge gaps in the area. So it's new, but it's up and coming, and it's really good to understand not the specific effects of different treatments, but understanding where we need to focus and where we have quite good knowledge. So if you look at 2010, which these registers are collected at, and this data is collected at, we had 23,176 people that had their first back pain diagnosed. And we follow them prospectively in the registers and looking at how many days of sick leave they had during a year. And we combine that with, we compare those individuals with 5 matched preferences. So we can actually get the exact cost difference between those groups. When you look at cost of different treatment diseases or something like that, it's usually called burden of what's it called? Burden of disease, and the cost of illness. Sorry, cost of illness. But many of them usually just look at all the costs that you can find in those individuals, which is a big drawback because you need to understand everyone has costs. So you need to have something that balance out the real, so we can see what's actually is just produced by back pain. So we had 5 matched individuals to every individual back pain. Our results here show that we had about 5,000 euros more of costs due to sick leave among individuals with back pain compared to the general public. We also saw that women had higher cost compared to men. And again, as I started the presentation with, that social demographic factors have a big impact on costs and how back pain affects different kind of groups. So people living in rural areas in Sweden had blue collar or manual work, had worse or higher costs, and the same can be said for elementary school, those with only elementary school education. Let's see. I use the registers that are part of insurance medicine department over at KI. They have amazing data there. They are combining a lot of national registers, both from the the insurance social insurance data from that group or agency. We also looked at LISA, which is a database for we use the big data databases that we are using, and all of them are collected or combined into this insurance medicine department at KI. And I can also say that they are usually looking for people that they have too much data actually, so they are always looking for people that wants to do research there. So I think if you have the opportunity to contact them, you should, because they have always interesting things that they can provide you with. So what the things that we can say based on the findings of this 4 or 5 years of hard work is that back pain is associated with significant productivity losses for individuals of working age. There is some evidence that primary care treatments have some effects on pain and function. and that we have a lot of knowledge gaps that we need to consider researching in the future. You can also say that combination treatment can be a viable alternative. We don't have the power to really say that it is, but there's some suggestion, at least in our data, that this can be a viable alternative. And finally, we need to continue doing RCTs or big evaluations of primary care treatments in Sweden. I wasn't able to answer everything, so if someone is interested in continuing my work, happily to do so. There's a lot to be done there. And I don't know if did I speak for too long? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. If you're interested in what I'm doing after my PhD, you can visit a page where I'm a postdoc at KI the new KI department at Central Clinical Neuroscience. It's called Pain Neuroimaging Lab, which is a hard word for a health economist to say, apparently. And the group has Instagram account as well, so you can follow us there. Sorry for speaking so long. I'm sorry for that.
Thank you so much, Philip. Don't worry, it was fine. I think we still have some time for questions. So we got a question asking do we have to prepare a research idea or a project proposal in advance before contacting the supervisor, or can we reach out to supervisors first and then ask directly?
Good question. I think that is, it depends, which everyone always say when you don't have a straight answer, but I can say that it's good to have a clue with what you want to pursue if you're contacting someone that you have heard about, or if it depends on the relationship to the one that you're interested in having as a supervisor. As I said, there is also positions that you can apply for where you just you don't have anything to say about the project, but I think it's still very much that you look for those positions yourself and trying to get those. So my advice is simply provide something, a basic plan at least, before you contact someone. That's a good idea.
Yeah, thank you. That was very insightful. The other question is, how did you find your supervisor? How was the process for you?
It's a long way. I actually contacted Vibeke Sparring. I don't know, did you have her in some course? Yeah. So I had a good relationship to Vibeke Sparring during the start of my as a student. I liked her. I found her to be a good person. So I contacted her with a project that I wanted to continue with, which was the master thesis. And I said I was interested in doing some sort of continuation of what I've been doing. And from that on, she contacted Kristina Burström and Niklas Etreus, and we just sat together and discussed the future possibilities that we had continuing forward. So yeah, a slippery slope. I just contacted someone who was interested, and then everything just moved on, basically. And I know both of them before, Kristina and Niklas, so it was okay for me to involve them, but yeah.
Yeah, good. Perhaps it's a bit too soon since you just defended your PhD thesis, but were you, during the 4 years that you've been working, were you able to see some practical implications of your thesis after your results were published, like some changes in treatments or any in practice?
Yeah, I was really lucky, I can say, in that regard. I was basically, I was unlucky with the amount of participants we had in the RCT trial, but I was lucky that it started as early as it did, because data collection is really hard during these times of Corona. So that could really have been an issue for me going forward. Right off the bat, I can't say anything about like structural changes in the clinics. They didn't, and I'm lucky for that. It didn't change in a major way, which is always scary when you do a project for 4 years. I just dodged Corona, which is really lucky. But otherwise, I think that would have been a major difficulty for me.
Thank you. And well, you developed several studies during your PhD. And how did you get the time to design and perform so many studies, like an RCT and cohorts? Is it expected to do something like this in a PhD, or how was it?
Yeah, it feels you have people around you who helps you, the supervisors, and even people that are not strictly part of the supervisor group, but is still part of my PhD program that helped me design those studies. By far, RCT trial, I think I would advise everyone to think again, because that is so. I think the first 2 years I just spent planning for this project and didn't receive any real awards in the end. So, but for example, the register study that I performed in the end was quite straightforward. I had senior researchers part of that project that know a lot of the field, and it's different when you are a master student. You're expected to do everything by yourself, but in a PhD, you're not expected to do everything by yourself, but you are much more involved in the plan. Yeah. So we're much more of a group planning. Maybe I've talked a little bit. I hope you can understand what I'm getting. But I can say that you don't need to do a lot of studies, but it's fine, and you should try to learn as much as possible. So if you have the opportunity, try it. I think don't get stuck in only a one register, and don't try anything else, because it's 4 years where you can learn as much as you can.
Yeah, that's very good. And so in one of your studies that you had the high dropout rates, did you have the opportunity to explore and what were the reasons for it, and what were the workarounds to maybe go over this dropout rates, how to work them in your favor, or change the project a little bit? How did it go?
It didn't really work in my favor, to be honest. The peer review process was hard on my self-esteem when I was trying to publish that. Is it something that they really don't like in the research community, is dropouts? But that is the reality of trying to follow individuals, especially in areas where you look at primary care. There is individuals that usually have seen a lot of treatments, and they are trying a lot of different kind of sectors or treatments areas and stuff like that, and they meet a lot of us researchers trying to get something out of them, and that's a fact that we know going into this. We did some analysis of the dropout rates, and in my article I complain about young males being bad at responding to surveys and questionnaires, and but it's always a drawback, I think. In the end, we can say that we can see some certain areas where people are dropping out, but we can never say anything more than that. We can just say that some areas is harder to study than others.
Yeah. Thank you. That was very interesting. We're running out of time, but also we didn't get any more questions. But thank you so much, Filip. It was very interesting to hear your experience as a PhD student and your project and learning about the challenges and the life of a PhD student. So if people have more questions, they are free to ask maybe in the event Facebook page, and then we can contact you and put you in contact with the people who asked questions. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for attending. We do have some other events coming up. So next week we'll have a workshop with Nordic Market Access on health economics modeling. And on the following week, we would have a presentation about another PhD presentation from Diego about epidemiology of diabetes. And well, you can find other events in our Facebook page. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Filip, and hope to see you next week.